Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to explore Highroad number 28, an Australian band
Oh, cool.
that you're curious about.
Mm-hmm.
And their new album is going to drop later this year, and you want to know what makes them tick.
Great.
So we've got an interview with their bassist, James, to kind of guide us through.
Oh, excellent.
So what makes this band stand out in such a crowded music scene?
Yeah, well, that's a good question.
Let's find out.
A lot of times we hear about a band's sound, but today I think what we're really going to get is a personal look at their creative process and the Australian music scene that shaped them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're gonna start with James's journey.
Okay.
Now, he didn't start the band,
Mm-hmm.
but his love for the bass drew him in.
Interesting.
So I'm curious, what grabbed him specifically about the bass?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Most bassists I know are drawn to that feeling of anchoring the music.
Mm-hmm.
It's that physical connection to the rhythm.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Now, James mentions that it was Andrew, the guitarist and vocalist, who founded the band. And Andrew seems to be like the heart of their songwriting, and their sound has evolved quite a bit over their 4 albums.
Yeah, it's fascinating how bands, transform over time.
Yeah.
So their first 2 albums, Obscure Madness and Dynamic Introspection, really lean toward heavier rock and even metal.
Right?
And then Unsteady and Steady State and Stumbling to Divinity
Yeah.
show a shift towards a more melodic and electronic sound.
It makes you wonder, how does that evolution translate musically?
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to say electronic elements,
Right.
but how does that actually change the feel of their music?
Yeah, you can hear it in the texture of the music, I think. Early on, it's raw energy and sharp edges.
Right.
Later, it's more layered,
Yeah.
perhaps a bit more introspective,
Yeah.
even if that intensity is still there.
Like the darkness gets a bit more luminous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
That actually ties into something James hinted at.
Right.
The band name Highroad number 28
Yeah.
has some personal meaning to Andrew, but he's keeping it close to the vest.
Oh, really?
It does make you want to dig into their lyrics and see if there are clues there.
Right, especially since you're interested in music that speaks to resilience and overcoming challenges, which seems to be a core theme for Highroad number 28.
Right.
Yeah.
And James really emphasized that they want their music to be cathartic for the listener.
Okay.
It's not just about rocking out.
Right.
It's about processing difficult emotions.
Interesting.
Do you think that comes through in the music itself, or is it more about connecting with the lyrics?
Well, I think it can work on both levels,
Okay.
Music, even without lyrics, can evoke really powerful feelings.
Yeah.
But when you add lyrics that speak to personal struggles and triumphs,
Yeah.
I think that's where it can become truly cathartic for the listener.
And James actually describes their sound as heavy alternative electronic rock with a lot of emotional depth.
Wow.
They're not afraid to get heavy,
Okay.
but there's also this atmospheric quality, this journey through the highs and lows of life, as he puts it.
That's great.
I know you're a fan of bands that blend those elements, like Deftones.
I am.
How does Highroad number 28 compare to a band like that?
Oh, that's an interesting comparison.
Yeah.
Deftones has that same mix of aggression and introspection, that ability to be both brutal and beautiful.
Yeah.
Highroad number 28, at least from what we're hearing, seemed to tap into a similar vein.
Right.
It's not just about being loud. It's about conveying a range of emotions.
And they actually mentioned Deftones as one of their dream tour partners.
Oh, wow.
Helmet and Carnival round out that lineup.
Okay.
I'm sensing a pattern here.
Yeah.
Those bands all kind of walk a line between heaviness and emotional depth.
Absolutely. And they each have a unique approach.
Right.
But they share that commitment to pushing boundaries within the alternative rock landscape.
Right.
Helmet is known for its angular riffs,
Yeah.
Deftones for their ethereal textures, and Carnival for their progressive songwriting.
Yeah.
It's an eclectic mix, but it makes sense given Highroad number 28's own sonic evolution.
It's like they're building their own lineage.
Yeah.
Connecting themselves to these influential figures in the genre.
Yeah.
It speaks to their ambition, too.
Absolutely.
Wanting to share the stage with those kinds of heavy hitters.
It definitely suggests a certain level of confidence and artistic vision.
Yeah, and speaking of vision,
Mm-hmm.
James had some intriguing thoughts on the use of AI in music.
Okay.
Something that's becoming increasingly prevalent.
Right.
He seems a bit wary of it,
Yeah.
acknowledging its potential, but also expressing concern about the lack of that human touch,
Yeah.
that soul that comes through in music created by actual people.
Right.
Do you think that's a valid concern?
I think it's a nuanced issue. AI can be a powerful tool
Yeah.
for exploration and experimentation, opening up new sonic possibilities.
Sure.
However, there's something to be said for the raw emotion, the lived experiences that fuel human creativity. It's that vulnerability, that imperfection that often resonates most deeply with listeners.
And that definitely seems to be at the heart of Highroad No. 28's approach.
Yeah.
They're all about pouring their hearts and souls into their music.
Yeah.
It's not just about creating a product.
Right.
It's about expressing something genuine and connecting with their audience on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Which brings us to their perspective on the current state of alternative music.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
Well, James seems to have a realistic, perhaps even a bit jaded view of the scene.
Yeah, he acknowledges its vibrancy, but also sees a lot of bands chasing trends, which can lead to a lack of originality.
Right.
For him, it's all about staying true to yourself, evolving organically without sacrificing your core identity.
That's a philosophy that resonates with Highroad No. 28's own journey.
Yeah.
They haven't been afraid to experiment and expand their sound,
Right.
but they've done it on their own terms, always prioritizing that emotional depth and intensity.
Yeah.
It's like they're saying, we're not going to compromise who we are to fit in.
And that commitment shines through, especially given the challenges of the Australian music scene, which James described as both vibrant and incredibly tough.
Right.
What struck you about his take on that scene?
Well, he paints a picture of a passionate community facing real obstacles. Venues are closing, making it harder for independent bands to gain traction.
Yeah. It's a story we hear often.
I do.
But it's especially poignant coming from someone who's lived it.
Right.
And it highlights the resilience of bands like Highroad No. 28, who keep pushing forward despite these challenges. They're not just creating music, they're fighting for their place in a difficult industry.
Absolutely. And then there's the financial strain, something James was quite vocal about.
Right.
He expressed real disappointment with the low royalties artists receive from streaming services.
That's a universal struggle for musicians in the digital age.
It is.
It raises questions about the sustainability of a music career.
Yeah.
When the financial rewards are so meager, even for bands with a dedicated following.
It underscores the dedication and passion required to make it in this industry. It's not just about the music. It's about navigating a complex and often unforgiving system.
And yet, despite these obstacles,
Yeah.
Highroad No. 28 are forging ahead with their new album, The Will to Endure.
Right.
Set for release in November.
Okay.
After a decade-long hiatus, it feels like a major statement.
It does.
What are you most curious about as we anticipate this new release?
Well, I'm intrigued to hear how their sound has evolved over this time. You know, they've gone through personal changes, navigated industry shifts,
Right.
and now they're re-emerging with a new body of work.
Yeah.
What will that sound like?
Yeah.
Well, what stories will they tell?
Yeah.
How will their experiences, both positive and challenging, be reflected in the music?
It feels like they've been through a crucible, and this album is the result.
Yeah.
And it's not just the album.
Right.
They're also planning their first live shows in over a decade.
Wow.
After such a long break, those shows must feel almost mythical to their fans.
They must.
Do you think they'll play material spanning their whole career or focus primarily on the new album?
It's hard to say for sure, but I'd imagine they'll strike a balance.
Okay.
They'll want to showcase their evolution, introduce fans to the new material, but also acknowledge their roots
Right.
and give longtime fans a taste of the classics.
Yeah.
It's going to be fascinating to see how they approach it.
It's going to be incredible to witness that energy exchange between the band and the fans, especially those who have been following them since the early days.
Yeah.
Speaking of those early days, you've mentioned enjoying their heavier material, Obscure Madness being a good starting point. But if you're looking to hear where they are now with those electronic textures you like, Stumbling to Divinity might be a better place to start.
That's a great point. Stumbling to Divinity really showcases their ability to blend those heavier elements with a more atmospheric, introspective soundscape.
Yeah.
It's a great bridge between their past and present.
And The Will to Endure feels like the culmination of all those experiences,
Right.
the next chapter in their story. It's fascinating how they've managed to stay true to their core while embracing new sounds and ideas.
Their journey speaks to a larger conversation happening in music right now.
Oh, really?
How do artists balance staying true to their roots while evolving and growing?
Yeah.
It's a delicate dance, and Highroad No. 28 seems to be navigating it with intention and integrity.
It makes you wonder how that approach, that will to endure they embody, will resonate with listeners.
Yeah.
I mean, we live in a world with so much uncertainty and upheaval, a world where resilience is more important than ever.
That's an insightful observation. Their music, with its themes of overcoming challenges and finding strength in adversity, feels particularly timely.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we all have the capacity to navigate difficult times, to find our own paths forward, even when the road ahead seems uncertain.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
And it's one that resonates deeply with me. Highroad No. 28's music isn't just entertainment.
Right.
It's a source of inspiration, a reminder that we're not alone in our struggles.
And that's the beauty of music, isn't it?
Yeah.
Its ability to connect us, to uplift us, to provide solace and strength in times of need.
Yeah.
Highroad No. 28, with their dedication to authenticity and their unwavering commitment to their craft, embody that power in a truly inspiring way.
So if you're looking for music that's heavy, melodic, and emotionally resonant music that speaks to the challenges and triumphs of the human experience, Highroad No. 28 is a band worth exploring.
Definitely keep an eye out for The Will to Endure in November. I have a feeling it's going to be an album that stays with you long after the final note fades. Yeah. And if you get the chance, catch them live.
Yeah, it's an experience that will undoubtedly leave you feeling energized, inspired, and connected to something larger than yourself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Highroad No. 28.
It's been a pleasure.